You're listening to Shameless Feminine Speaks with your host, modern-day shaman and sister to all, Rebecca Haywood, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Shameless Feminine Speaks. I'm your host, Rebecca Haywood, here with my lovingly irreverent co-host and dear friend, Shameless Sheena.
And the hand-holding has already begun, and we're 10 seconds in, and
I can't resist.
love that you're always holding my hand. You're always touching me, and
yes.
You're so wonderful.
Yeah, it's the healer in me.
My mom used to say that you live a year longer for every year that you get 10 hugs a day.
Oh.
Isn't that nice? She used to always say that.
Well, then I'm never going.
10 hugs a day, my friend.
Does it count if you give the hugs? I mean, is there really a giving or a getting to a hug?
No.
Aw.
No, you just have to have the hug, I think, is getting the hug.
That's right.
Doesn't matter who.
That's the beauty
it doesn't
of a
matter
hug.
who initiates the hug. Just that the hug happens, my friends.
Well, good. Then I'm definitely never going anywhere. The secret to immortality, folks, give hugs.
Exactly. Give those hugs, people, everywhere you can find them.
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited to be here with you all again today. I finally have my energy back from Mexico. It's been a little bit of a journey landing. There's always a journey post Mexico.
I bet.
Post
of
any
course.
retreat, but especially these longer retreats.
Oh, God, yeah. Well, post any time you go out of town, it's exhausting when you come home. You need a vacation from your vacation.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And with leading a retreat, you know, I'm really kind of carrying a group intent and really dialed in to the people on the trip. And on this trip in particular, there was this larger intent that we all tapped into that really, you know, I was really processing a lot of emotion during the trip and post-trip. Hence, the title of our show today. How does that for a lead in?
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, which is filtering the waters of our empathy.
Beautiful.
Yeah, which actually was inspired by last week's show and the prior week's show.
Oh, okay.
We have a double inspiration on
I like how all
this
our
one.
shows tie together like a show train.
They do.
They're just all different cars in the train, people.
That's right. Well, actually, there was a woman that commented on our show that we broadcast from Mexico. Yeah, and she spoke into, I think you had brought up empathy and living as an empath and the challenges of that. And she had said how she often feels broken, right, and just overwhelmed with that.
That breaks my heart.
Yeah, with that empathy, and that it can actually make her very sick. And you know, I can testify to that this week. I wasn't very, very sick, but definitely under the weather, emotionally sick. And it actually, this go-round actually manifested in my body a bit. So, which isn't usual for me. I'm usually able to filter it without it impacting my physical matter. And this was just some heavy stuff.
Yep.
So, which is sometimes
some heavy
the case.
shift.
Yeah. So I wanted to, give her the medicine that she's seeking. And last week, as we were talking about the superpower of emotion, in which, we talked about how that's, another aspect of the feminine that has been marginalized by today's society, right? And both women and men are impacted by this marginalization, that we all tend to repress or bypass our emotions, right? Especially like certain emotions according to our gender, right? We talked about anger.
Right. Why are you so emotional?
Yeah, why are you so emotional?
Why are you being a bitch?
Yeah, why are you being a bitch? If you're a woman, like that anger is really taboo.
Why can't you get your temper under control? Are you PMSing?
Right. And I think even for men these days, anger is very taboo.
Yeah, I think for anybody it's taboo. It's as funny as our society gets angrier and angrier, it also becomes more shaming of anybody's legitimate anger. So that's a very strange, one of the ironies of being a Homo sapien on the planet Earth.
Right, absolutely. Wow. Yeah, and we also spoke about grief. You shared about your grief how you kind of, even though you talk about it on your radio shows
and everywhere,
the aspect of really letting that floodgate lifting that floodgate, right, and allowing those emotions to come, that's kind of more behind closed doors, right? Kind of more.
Yeah, or even not at all, because there's just simply no time for it. And because I'm the girl who's supposed to be inspiring everybody else, and I have to give myself permission.
Right.
But I have to tell you that this, I've been suffering from an electrolyte imbalance due to an accident that happened. And I don't seem to have that much control right now over what goes on inside of my body. So it's all just kind of been coming out as it comes out. And part of that is just random cries about how much I miss my mom, which I didn't think needed to be in there 3.5 years later, but clearly do. And just about bizarre things, like my empathy is off the hook right now. One of the symptoms of an electrolyte imbalance is that you develop anxiety and panic, and that's my old arch enemy. But so I'll be watching something on TV, and suddenly somebody will be in the hospital or somebody will be sad, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to turn this off. Like my ability to filter out stuff through my empathy seems to be at a little bit of an empath until I get better, an empath until I get better. So you have to watch it when you're an empathic person. You have to watch what you take in, and then under certain circumstances where you're not 100%, you still are taking everything in, but it's harder to flush it out.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. There's more places for it to stick to.
Yeah.
Inside of you, and more chances of you kind of identifying it with it.
Absolutely.
We're going to talk about all of those aspects of being an empath, and really, this show, last week's show was more about opening the floodgates, like lifting the dam on our emotions, right? And it's like, well, what about those that already have? And who are living as empaths, like you, like me, and like many of our viewers, that are having a challenge managing that, right? Many empaths kind of talk about that feeling of overwhelm, right? That feeling of getting sick, that need to isolate. How do we live with this empathy, and still harness that gift, because it is a gift. It is a gift. It is a superpower, and we certainly don't want to shut it down. And yet, we want to be able to live happy, healthy lives and not always be experiencing the world's ocean of emotion.
Right, and not always being constantly purging toxicity from our being 24/7. I teach an empath workshop called Why Do I Feel Everything? And I always say at the beginning of the workshop, congratulations, you're an empath, and my condolences, you're an empath. Because it really is, right? It's a dual thing. On one hand, and what I hope through the workshop and through the work I do with people, with clients, to get to the point where they realize it's actually the most beautiful thing that can happen to you. But you have to learn how to filter properly. Right. And you have to learn how to let things go and learn the art of release, to realize that there is no more beautiful gift than to be able to stand on the middle of the earth, wherever you are, and feel the everything of everything moving through you. I mean, that is an incredible gift.
That's absolutely true, because it's not that we're just feeling humanity's emotions.
No, everything.
You're feeling all of life.
The pulse of the earth. I mean, everything. The pulse of the ocean, every animal's heartbeat. I mean, you are literally feeling everything all the time.
Yeah. It's a beautiful, beautiful gift. And, even if you don't consider yourself an empath, I really encourage you to stay tuned, because this isn't relegated to healers, this conversation.
No.
And really, truly, everyone has this gift.
Of course.
Everyone carries empathy. Everyone, if you are emotional, if you have emotions, guess what? You're an empath. And
congratulations and condolences.
Yeah, congratulations and condolences. And it is a beautiful thing, because it is that connection. Okay, it is a connection to yourself, to your body. That emotion, I talked about them last week as messengers of healing. And each emotion will tell you exactly the medicine to bring to them, where, when, and how to bring that medicine to them. They will inform you. I talked about, kind of throw out the psychological end of your self-help work in terms of trying to combat, right, and annihilate beliefs. And go straight for the emotions, because that's the gold right there. And that is really where my transformation, my awakening really came to light, in that aspect of finding the emotional energy of a belief, trying to go through the beliefs into the emotions. Well, you can get all tied up in there, right? There's all kinds of stories we can tell.
Of course.
And the stories that we tell about our emotions are just as confusing, if not more confusing.
Of course.
And now we're not even sure what we're feeling anymore because we just put a label on it that called it something. But oops, now it moved because guess what? Emotions are watery.
Yeah.
They flow. They're emotion, energy in motion. And so now it's moved and shifted in our body. And now it doesn't quite match that label, which it never really quite matched that label to begin with. But it was trying its best to abide by our story that we put onto it. Now add to just the label, the story of the label, the name we give it a larger story. Wow, that emotion is just, completely distorted by the time we're done with it. Whereas if you can find that way, that what I call emotional presence, where it's a direct accessing of your emotional body. And instead of telling a story about your emotions, you're letting your emotions tell you their story. And mind you, that story is sometimes in words, but very often wordless. And it's important that we allow it to be wordless.
Sure.
And to allow it to flow through the riverbed of our body. And if we can do that, tap into that emotional presence and really develop that emotional presence, wow, then no matter how much of an empath you are, how much of the world's unprocessed emotions you are processing, guess what? You will come out clean on the other side.
Yeah.
You really will. And so I did put a couple of links in the chat room on Facebook. You can check those out. One of them is the Gifts for the Ghost video series that I created for the Shamanism in the New Millennium book. And that's a video series all about developing emotional presence. So I talked about it last week. I highly recommend that you go check out those videos. There's some great tools and practices for you to really start healing and developing that emotional presence. Okay. And the other link is actually a workshop that I'm going to be teaching in Washington State, next month. Yeah, about a month from today on the equinox. How perfect is that?
It's beautiful.
Developing emotional presence on the equinox. So check that out. I think we're already almost full up there. I think we just have maybe 3 to 5 slots left. So check it out. If you're in the area, we'd love to have you. I'm also doing private sessions. So all of that aside, now let's talk to you folks who have already lifted the floodgates on emotions, who have at least in part developed an emotional presence enough to know that you're an empath. Now, mind you, those of you that don't call yourself an empath, like I said, you are an empath. And you're better off just admitting that now.
Exactly.
Right, because there are many...
Because we're not playing. You're not fooling us.
You're not fooling us, and you might be fooling yourself, though.
Okay.
And that's the part that is hurting you. Because there's so many people walking around processing other people's emotions in their own name, right? And if left unfiltered, if we keep claiming those emotions and not actually managing those emotions, processing them as we're going to show you how today, then those emotions can congeal, right, into depression, anxiety, even addiction, right? It's almost like a spiritual possession. So, really listen in, even if you don't consider yourself an empath, and really check in with that, because you may find, those aspects of emotions that have been hanging around you for a while.
Sure.
Right? That you've, no matter how many self-help books you throw at them, they won't go anywhere. Guess what? They're probably not yours.
Yeah, and sometimes anxiety, depression, panic disorder, these are all things sometimes that you're actually just picking up too much from the world. You've got too much coming in and you don't let it go. And I talk about this a lot when I teach my workshop, that everything in our body physiologically is designed to take in and let go, right? You drink and then you urinate. You breathe in, you breathe out. Your heart takes in blood, it pumps out blood. Our body is to be in motion. Blood moves through your body. If you're taking things in energetically, it's almost like, what if you never exhaled? You're not supposed to take things in and not let it go. Everything spiritually, emotionally, and physiologically with us is supposed to have a certain level of fluidity.
Right.
So you need to allow the energy to come in, and then you need to let it go through. And some stuff you take in, you think about, and then you let go. Some stuff you take in 100 things, you let 99 wash out the other way, and you keep one to think about it for a while. Some things stay with you forever, and that's okay. They're supposed to. It just depends on the energy that you're taking in and the information that you're taking in.
Mm-hmm. Right. And if you really shift your relationship with your emotional body in that way of allowing the emotion to inform you versus you informing it.
Exactly.
Then it won't stick in your body.
Mm-hmm.
It will inform you on the way out.
Yeah.
Which is really, really beautiful. And it'll even evolve you as it informs you. So, that's one of the things that causes, empaths, that empathy, that channel of empathy where we're perceiving another's emotion. That's one of the things that causes it to stick, is when we claim it. We claim it with our own name, right? So, one of the first questions that often comes up for empaths is, how do I tell if it's theirs or mine?
Yep.
And
I hear that all the time.
Right? And so I'll be really curious what your answer is to this, because I have kind of, my little Scorpio answer to this.
Oh. If it's mine, it's wonderful. If it's theirs, I kill them.
No.
Said the Scorpio. The tail comes out and I go...
I don't know what Scorpios you're hanging with, but...
Honey, I grew inside one.
Yeah, well,
I fed off the umbilical cord of revenge for 9 months. I know all your secrets, you people.
I promise I don't seek
in the
to
most
destroy.
loving way.
Yeah.
Sometimes Rebecca's like, wow, you're more of a Scorpio than I am.
You
And I'm
really
like,
are.
Well, I did grow inside of one.
Yeah.
I learned all the tricks by the time I was born. So what do you want to know how I...
Yeah, so I'm curious your take on that. How do you
I know
tell
what's
the
mine
difference?
and what's somebody else's?
Yeah.
I think that the first tool for that, Rebecca, is you have to become firmly grounded and connected within yourself so that you identify what things are yours. I think a lot of folks that become empaths or grow their empathy or have off-the-hook empathy to begin with, especially folks who are starting on a spiritual path, it doesn't always mean as a light worker, it can just mean growing your path. You step on that path, but you don't really know who you are. So you start taking in all this stuff and you don't know how to get rid of it, and you don't know whose is whose because you don't know really what is you. And it's sort of like you wouldn't step on stage in a play if you didn't know the lines. The first step is you have to know what's you. And be firmly connected to you. And this in you and you is the most important relationship that you will ever have. Even more important than your relationship with spirit, which is the next most important relationship you'll ever have. Once you really know who you are, then you can identify, well, wait a minute, that's not me. That's just weird. I don't know what that is. And then you realize that you know what I mean? It is, then you realize what it is. And sometimes, like in the case of what I've gone through with this electrolyte imbalance, it was actually a physiological thing because I kept thinking, why am I panicking about something that I know this isn't what it is? Well, the answer was because it was physiological. It was irrational because it was coming from a chemical imbalance. It was not coming from me. Some people, their mood disorders are a chemical imbalance. Not always, but sometimes. So there's also physiological things at play in your body. And then there are people around you who sometimes their negative juju, they're kind of passing it off on you and they know they're doing it. It's like if one day you woke up and somebody had taken all the crap from their garage and just moved it to your garage. Some people, that's a good idea. I should move all my stuff to someone's garage. Some people are more like what I call drowning man syndrome. So they don't really understand that they're doing it. They're just desperate. So they're gobbling up energy and they're throwing all their stuff at you because they're just trying to feel better. And then it's all coming at you and you're taking it in. And empaths are helpers, right? So when you're a helper, you want to help people. Like, oh, I'll take this 15 tons of stinky energy off you. No, let me take it. So, sometimes you wind up with a whole bunch of somebody else's stuff and you're not sure who you got it and they're not even sure they gave it to you. So it's really just putting up screens and filters. I mean, filter. And when you filter even more. You wouldn't go to Vietnam without a mosquito net. You shouldn't live your life as an empath with an open channel and no filters and no screens. Does that make sense, Rebecca? Do you believe in filters and screens?
Yeah, I do. I do and I don't.
Okay.
I do and I don't.
Okay.
So, absolutely, like I agree. The greatest filter is our awareness, self-awareness.
Sure.
If we know ourselves, then absolutely.
Absolutely.
Ditto, ditto, ditto. Exactly what this gal said.
Shameless Sheena.
Shameless Sheena. On the mark. And that self-awareness is key. All right. Absolutely. There's no way I would have known. I didn't even know that I was processing other people's emotions until I had cleaned up all of my own, right? And really cleaned up all the beliefs in my mind, and I was no longer creating those kinds of frequencies for myself and really was vibrating at that frequency of love. Then it was really easy to tell, right? Now, I don't want you thinking like, gee, okay, so how long did it take you to get there, Rebecca? Like, I got to wait 10 years before it.
Took you 10 years?
Me as an empath.
To learn to spiritually void?
No, but all of the awakening process.
That's a lot of spiritual constipation, Rebecca.
No, the awakening process. But, you don't have to wait for that. That's the beauty of it.
Yes.
Because actually, even if you don't have awareness, you have a filter that is like the best filter of all, which is love. You have that presence of love. And that is like the final step in my developing emotional presence practice that you'll learn in the videos, which is put love in front of it. And no matter the emotion, this is why, like my little Scorpio answer to the question of how to tell whether it's yours or theirs, is that it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. At least for me as a healer, like I joke that us shamans ship for the world. Yeah, that's one of my jokes. We ship for the world. And I'm okay with it, I'm okay with it.
Right. But you have to make sure you shit for the world and not constipate. Nobody likes a constipated shaman.
No, nobody likes a constipated shaman. This is true. Especially the constipated shaman.
Especially the constipated shaman, yes.
I love how our dialogues digress.
I know, right? It goes from airy fairy talks and then all of a sudden we're into like shitting. Who knows what you're going to get here.
Hey,
we can't help it. We're spiritual beings and we live in our higher selves, yet we're from New England. So we tell it like it is.
That's right.
We don't know what to tell you about that.
We won't even ask for your forgiveness.
Exactly. Forget about it.
Forget about it. Yeah. But, it really is that for me, I have no problem processing the emotions of the world on most days. And in that sense, it's really just greeting it all with love.
Yeah.
Even returning from this trip and I had the emotional malaise. I mean, really, I told you, I barely left the house.
It's like day after Christmas syndrome, though. I think you always, after a big up like that, I think there's always a...
Oh, no, I was really processing some stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Right. And it was wordless and nameless and faceless and all that jazz. And I just kept putting love in front of it, kept breathing. Your breath is a wonderful tool. It like filters the air in your lungs. Guess what? It's also moving the energy in your body.
Absolutely.
So awareness is a filter. Love is the absolute filter. Your breath is an amazing filter as well. And just moving the body, right? Take the dog for a walk, the dog of your body. Take your body for a walk. Just get movement in there, and it will begin to allow that energy to move. Okay. Now, all of this being said, again, I keep coming back to and lift the story from them, okay? Don't put even a label on them. Don't even claim them as your own. It doesn't matter, yours or theirs. Put love in front of it, breathe through it, move your body, have awareness in terms of allowing it to inform you, if it even needs to inform you. Many times emotions will move out of my body with no information. And there's just nothing that needs to be learned by me for that. And that's a really good indication that it wasn't mine to begin with.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the answer, my Scorpio answer is it doesn't matter, yours or theirs. Don't worry about it. Just put love in front of it. Just put love in front of it. And if you're having a hard time, putting love in front of it because maybe there's still a judgment on that emotion, or you're just an empath who's sick and tired of processing the world's emotions and you're a little lamenting of that, use that caretaker, as Sheena said, as an empath, we are caretakers. And so use that caretaker in you to kind of trick yourself and treat that emotion as your very own child. I said this last week, if you can just hold that emotion as if it were your own child, eventually it will stop crying and it will fall asleep. Yeah. So was there anything you wanted to add to that, yours or theirs?
I don't think it matters. It still needs to come out of you. Do you know what I mean? If you get a cold, does it matter if the cold just generated in you or you got it from somebody else?
Right.
No, you have a cold and you got to get rid of it. I think we spend too much time worrying about what's ours and what's theirs.
Right.
And I think especially too many light workers that I know, or too many spiritual newbies that are just starting out, are like, oh my God, I can't go to the mall because I empath everybody. I love when people use empath as a verb. I don't really think it is, but you see it on Facebook all the time. Oh my God, I can't possibly deal with my kids' friends' moms because I empath everybody. It's like, look, I empath so many people. I'm on such high empathy now that I watch a TV show and I can feel what all the actors are thinking as they're doing the scenes. I'm like feeling the cameraman standing behind them shooting it. That's how much I'm feeling right now with this weird imbalance. But it cannot stop you from living your life. You can't hide in a hole because you're an empath. You're supposed to be out there helping people and feeling things so you can help people. Human beings are supposed to grow their empathy. So don't run and hide away from it because it's too much. Get your butt to the mall and then find places where you can help people and find ways to get familiar and comfortable in a situation where there are a lot of people around you, because you will live a very unhappy life if you just keep isolating and isolating and isolating. And it's easy to want to do that, but don't do it. It's not good for you. And the world needs you. The world doesn't want you to be hiding away somewhere.
Well, yeah, and since we're all empaths, what are we all going to do? Hole up, and that's why I say I do and I don't believe in the filters and the shields kind of thing, because, well, you didn't use the word shield, but
no, I don't like shields because shield implies something that's that's impenetrable. I like a filter and a screen, so that you can let what comes through what you want. It's like, if there are bugs outside, you don't not open a window. You open a window, it has a screen, it keeps the bugs out, it brings the air in, you get the fresh air, and you don't get bugs in your teeth. It's the same thing. The filters and the screens just help you siphon out the things that you don't want.
Right. And, a couple of things that you said are key in terms of what you end up pulling in, like what your experience ends up being. If you have that story about I'm an empath and thus I get sick,
right?
Thus everywhere I'm going, I'm feeling everybody, then so be it. That's what your experience will be, and you will get sick.
Right.
And
it doesn't need to make you sick. Feeling everybody's everything doesn't need to make you sick. You just have to filter out the stuff that's toxic for you. I mean, I hate to tell you this, but we're breathing everyone's air. And so we're drinking the same water everyone else is drinking. Even if you're drinking bottled water, guess what? Like fish lived in there and pooped in there and had sex in there. And
here she goes again, people.
Now we're into fish sex.
Are any of the fish menstruating by chance, Sheena?
Yes. Okay. Fish are menstruating in the water.
We just had to get all the bodily fluids in there.
They're pooping in the water. Okay. They're peeing in the water. We're breathing air that everyone breathes. There's diesel out there, exhaust, car exhaust, factory exhaust. People are smoking. People are exhaling. You cannot live in a bubble where you're not getting everybody's everything. This world is a shared experience, and we're all sharing everybody's everything. You can't not go to the park because you're like, oh, a dog might have pooped in that park. Well, guess what? A dog did, like 50 dogs did, and they did it a lot. So you can't be the person that doesn't touch the shopping cart in the grocery store, because we now know that person actually compromises themselves by never actually touching anything. It's the same thing with empathy. If you refuse to ever have contact with anyone energetically because you're worried you're going to get something, like the people who won't shake the hand or touch the shopping cart. You're actually dinging your spiritual immune system because you're just not ever around anybody, and you're keeping yourself pulled back from everyone. And again, that's not how we're supposed to have a human experience.
Well, and it also really kind of brings me back to what I spoke about last week of, really shifting our relationship with all the emotions, to where, and I don't know that I got to actually speak into this last week, that for me, my experience of emotions now is that every emotion comes from love. Every emotion comes from love. And no matter the path of distortion that it took before it got to you, to your awareness, or from that person to you, it originally comes from love. And, for me as a healer, I walked through a lot of superstition as a healer, of being afraid of things sticking to me, of picking up other people's bad juju. And a lot of that was about like what emotions they were carrying, right? And yet, through my work of really recognizing that, like in my journey of recognizing that every emotion comes from love, I'm no longer afraid of any emotion. It's not, there are different frequencies, but it's not about like evil. It's not about really truly about negativity, not for me. Everything is just a different frequency of love, of life, of God, of divinity. Okay. And, I did speak about emotions last week, like weather, right? So like anger, I experience is that like thunder or fire, it's elemental. And, when we can really shift our relationship with emotions in that way, no matter how empathic you are, these things aren't going to make you so sick, because most of what's making you sick is your story about them, which is then fixing it in your body and also making it a negative frequency, because you're telling it that's what it is, and you're dragging it down. It's not dragging you down. The emotions are actually innocent, the innocent player here. So, that's why the whole like filter and screen thing, yes, I'm with you on that, and absolutely in that aspect of...
We've made her a filter and screen believer.
Yes.
Welcome to the dark side, Rebecca Haywood.
Yes. Well, I believe in it in the sense of, okay, I'm going to clarify this, because I'm not totally a believer yet. Okay. You'll have to work on me on that
partial believer. Yeah. Scorpios are a hard sell, people.
But I believe in it in the sense that we are like radios. And so whatever we set our frequency to, we attract.
Sure.
Okay. And it's not that love, isn't ever going to come face to face with hate, of course, but in terms of what I allow in, what that hate will become when it hits my auric field, when it hits my emotional body, it gets transformed into love, because that's what I am. That's the frequency that I'm holding, It's really a beautiful thing. So, and that's why I say the best filter is love. The best filter.
Love is a great filter.
Yeah.
Also, a wonderful filter is just pull yourself back from the situation. You don't have to be right in everybody's energetic face all the time. If you don't know who somebody is, and you don't know how they resonate yet, and you don't know what level of toxicity they output, then you just, physically you can be standing this far from them, but energetically you can pull your energy back a little bit until you figure out what the deal is. You don't have to be right. And that's a lesson I learned as an Aries, because let me tell you, my Scorpio mother, she knew how to do this like a champ. I'm like, oh, I'm a puppy, love me. I would be right up in everybody's face. Then I'm like, oh, you're evil, and now my head hurts. And I had to learn over time that you don't have to like leap at everybody like a crazed Cocker Spaniel. It's okay until you figure out where somebody resonates energetically, how much you want to get your energy mixed up with them. And that's perfectly okay.
Well, and this is a really good point, because, in my experience, there are a couple of different levels of empathy, that we all have. We all have. I don't mean like higher or lower. I just mean there's the empathy that is perceiving, right? So I can perceive Sheena, right? And I can perceive what's going on over there and not invite it in.
Right.
Okay. And
for
then,
God's sakes, don't invite Sheena in.
I love inviting you in. And then there's that level of empathy where we do invite it in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so this is something for you to monitor if you're one of those empaths that's like, I can't leave the house because I'm just always processing everything and I just get so sick and I'm so tired all the time and I just feel everything. Because that's an agreement that you have. That's that caretaker in you saying, let me take it for them. But guess what? You don't have to. Okay. You don't have to take it for them. Okay. That's not necessarily the purpose of your gift as an empath.
Right.
It can be, right? Like certainly for me as a healer and leading retreats, like I make choices about what I will choose to process for another, okay? But even that I do very nominally because it's disrespectful, right? It denies them their own process, right? So I might take it into myself for a moment just to allow it to start to flow. And then once I see them flowing with it, then I give it back. Okay, so you can take it in, make sure that you recognize that that's an agreement, and you can also choose to not take it in and make the agreement at some point to give it back, right? And that's the thing, is that I think that so many people who have this gift of empathy are just really stuck in that caretaker role of let me do it for you, let me take it for you. You know, I can handle it, I can process it for you. So, you know, be mindful of that agreement that you have as a caretaker and, you know, allow yourself the perception, because that's part of your connection with people. That's part of the wordless communication that we all get to have with one another, which is so beautiful. You know, I think we're far too reliant on words. And that's what gets us so confused. But if we all were willing to really surrender to this empathy, that we have this perceptual empathy, you know, where we are perceiving one another and, you know, and then making choices on what we receive. Okay. So agreements, people. Self-awareness. What other filters? Love.
Energetic distance. You don't have to have your face right up against the mosquitoes. You can just pull it back a little bit. Everything you don't have to be so on the front lines with everything.
Right.
Doesn't mean that physically you can't be present and being pleasant with people, but energetically you don't have to be like a big open gaping wound that just lets everyone's emotions in. You don't have to do that. You don't have to take on everybody's stuff.
Right.
Discernment, energetic discernment for how much you take on and how much you don't.
Right, absolutely. And
nothing's wrong with that. That doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you a bad spiritual person. It doesn't mean God's mad at you because you're not taking on everyone's toxicity. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to live in the world and have a full life, but you're not here to take on everybody's exhausting energy. And if you start to realize that somebody is just exhausting, it's okay to back up from them a little bit.
Yeah.
I do it all the time. Sometimes I'm like, I have to give you a little bit of a rest because you are exhausting. And that happens in our lives when people come to us for help all the time. Sometimes you have to say, you don't want help. You just want a place to dump all of your stuff. And I am not the dumping place for all of your stuff, although Rebecca might disagree with that.
Aww.
Because I think she's better at yes, I take on a lot more stuff, I think, from people than Rebecca does. But that part of it, I consider that my service as a minister. So I do. But even sometimes I'm like, man, you're not even looking for anything except just a place to put your garbage. And some people are just just get it off me, get it off me, get it off me. And they'll put it on the first person closest to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, it was years of working with Sarita and really seeing that people coming back with the same thing, you know, that it was healed, it was gone. And then they come back, they recreate it because they're just so addicted emotionally to being sick or to whatever drama was in their lives. Yeah. So, you know, but no, I don't think you're a dumping ground. I don't think that you're a dumping ground at all.
No, I don't mean that you think of me as a dumping ground, but I think you think sometimes that I take on too much and I'm
that you allow people to dump.
And part of it I know I'm doing it. I dump and I filter and I dump and I filter because I know sometimes people just need a place to put their stuff, and I'm happy for them to put it here because I'm good at filtering out when I don't have an electrolyte imbalance. But there are times when I say, wait a minute, you're not just doing this because you need someone to take your stuff. You're actually not wanting to do your own work. And you would rather I take it on so you don't have to deal with it. And
Right.
that's when I start to take some very gentle and loving steps back from folks.
Right. Well, I think when you recognize that someone isn't actually looking to heal, they're just looking for a temporary relief, then it shifts things. You know, it really does shift things, because I know for me as a caretaker, of course, I want to help and heal everyone. But if that's not really what you want, then respect.
Yeah.
Like, you can keep it then. I'm not going to be a temporary relief for you.
Yes.
So anyway, moving on. We digress.
No, I think this is exactly the topic. I don't think we're digressing that much. I think it's a good thing, because like sometimes you'll find, like, I'll have a client, right? And they're the person in their family that everybody dumps all their stuff on. And they wind up being very run down and very tired all the time. And there's like a family reunion. They can't even enjoy the time because everyone's just coming over and dumping all their stuff. And I always say to them, you know, the universe, God, source, did not designate you to be the one to have to get everything dumped on you. At some point, you have to say to yourself, I don't want to be the family dumping ground anymore. I don't want to be the one in my friend group that takes all the stuff on. It's different than helping people. Helping people is amazing. Being there for people is amazing. Using your empathy is amazing. But you were not put on this earth for others to dump all of their garbage on 24/7. Now, when people need you, look, when somebody's in crisis, they will find an empath to tell their problems to. And that's a beautiful thing about being an empath. But it's knowing when enough is enough.
Yeah, and I agree that it's not that we haven't really fully digressed from the topic. I just want to be sure that we're not isolating those people who don't identify as a healer, that don't identify as an empath per se. And so let me kind of reframe this. Okay. Just actually, I'm going to share with you some words that my teacher, Don Miguel Ruiz, shared with me about boundaries. And it really shifted my point of view and helped me as a caretaker to recognize, he said, you know, when in a dream of, you know, in the beginning, when you're still kind of have your own emotional poison and all of those beliefs that go against yourself, you're in that mindset. Boundaries are something that we place to kind of protect our wounds, right? Like, don't touch me here, don't touch me that way, don't talk to me that way. And we choose not to engage in the world in a certain way out of protecting ourselves, okay? And then in an awake dream, okay, when you've woken up and you've healed yourself, okay, and you recognize that really what you are is love, boundaries are still necessary. And those boundaries aren't for you, they're for them, you know? And it serves them placing those boundaries, because we're also kind of placing some rules on the game that we're playing, right? Yeah. That this kind of emotional poison is not okay. This kind of dumping is not okay. And instead we're placing that boundary and saying, and basically holding up a mirror with our boundaries and saying, hey, look at yourself. You know, look at yourself for a moment. And it is also kind of maintenance boundaries, because we're never completely impenetrable, right? So it's important to have those boundaries even after you've woken up, even after you've done all your work and you've really cleaned and cleared the cobwebs, that you have those boundaries to, as a maintenance protocol, kind of, you know, like certain things are allowed in my home and certain things aren't, like Sheena was saying, you know, the filters and the screens of what you choose to allow in. And yes, we can vibrate at a certain frequency, and that's going to take care of a lot of it, of what we attract and what we allow in and what things get transmuted to once they kind of step in. And yet it's still okay to just say, no, sorry, like I'm lifting the welcome mat to this energy or to this experience or to this person in my life. So, you know, remember those boundaries. And in terms of, you know, I wanted to speak into isolating and the getting sick aspect that some people experience. And in terms of the isolating, you know, I'm not going to tell you don't isolate. I did it this week. You know, I barely left the house.
Take the time you need. That's okay.
Barely left the house. The key is it kind of comes back to that first thing, self-awareness. So I was just really aware that, you know, I was funky, you know, like, emotionally, energetically, physically, I was funky. And so that means I'm more vulnerable to other funky, right? So remember, whatever frequency you're vibrating at, that's what you're going to pick up. That's what you're going to attract. That's what your radio is tuned into and dialed into. That's what you're going to allow in. So I wasn't about to go walk the streets of LA in my funky, because there's a lot of funky out there. So
please leave your funky at home.
Yes. Well, I mean, I love your funky, but when I'm like well and good, I love your funky. I can enjoy it and transmute it if I choose, or just like observe it and have a good laugh. And so, in terms of isolating, you can isolate in ways that aren't actual physical isolation. That's one aspect, where you can kind of energetically kind of put up the screen.
Yep.
Here we go. Look, I'm jumping on board with your screens.
Here we go. Screens and filters.
Like I call them my little bubble, and you can put that up, and remember, everything's an agreement, and just that agreement of saying, you know what, not today. I'm like hanging the closed for business, for empathy business today sign, and I'm just going to be in my own world. I put on my headphones, I listen to my music, I choose my emotional environment, my internal emotional environment, and I just groove there. And it's not that I'm not perceiving the world around me, but my bubble's up. The shields are up, the invisible shields.
And you can decide the thickness of the screen that you want. Some screens are more porous and they let more things in. Some screens are more tight and hardly anything gets in. You can decide from day to day where you want your screen to be. And you don't have to be a healer to do any of this. I mean, if you're the person in your life, in your friend group or family group that everyone comes to with their problems, you're probably not identifying as a healer, and you may never, ever, ever, ever decide to have that as a vocation. But you are the healer in your group because you're the one everybody comes to for answers. So I think that what Rebecca's talking about is differentiating between who identifies themselves as like, I'm a healer and that's my vocation, and somebody who naturally in them is empathetic and has healing properties. If you're the person that all your friends call when they're falling apart, guess what? You're a healer. Now, you might not the rest of your life. You may work in an office, work as a doctor, do whatever you do, but guess what? You're an energetic healer because everyone is drawn to you.
Yeah.
And I think that comes hand in hand with the empathy. And I do think that everybody has empathy. I don't know that I think everybody is an empath.
Well, I beg to differ.
Okay. It's your show.
Yeah. Well, no, it's our show.
It's our show.
We can have varying opinions.
Yeah.
It's great. I mean, I think
everybody has it, but I don't know that everybody is one. In the same way that I can run, well, not lately, but I'm not a runner,
Yeah. Well, regardless, the last question that I wanted to handle was, how to not get sick. And, this week I did get a little sick, and really I know that there was nothing I could have done differently. I know that there was nothing I could have done differently. Sometimes the getting sick is part of the emotional processing its way out. I still have remnants of it in my body. So, however, like I said, it's not unusual for me, the getting sick. So, how do I avoid that? And really, I believe that it's based in my story about emotions, that I'm not, as I shared before, that there's not a negative emotion in my book. It's all beautiful, and I'm allowing those weather patterns to come through, and even if it's thunder and lightning, like, I'm not afraid of it. Like, I'm dancing in it and rejoicing in it, and guess what? It clears the air.
It's beautiful.
It cleans the air. So, I really invite you, if you are an empath, or if you are one who is empathic, just simply go check out those videos, because there's some wonderful tools walking you all the way from identifying your judgments on emotions and lifting those judgments through the practices of stalking your beliefs about emotions.
Not stalking. Stalking.
Stalking.
Not stalking.
Stalking. Am I talking like a Boston girl now?
I'm creeping around with a knife looking for my emotions. I'm stalking my own emotions.
Yeah, we are stalking. And recapitulating them. and then redreaming them into a healed presence in your body.
Yes.
So it's really a beautiful process. Go check them out. It will really help you, empath or not, okay? It'll really, really help you both lift the dam on your emotions and also learn how to put some filters in place, okay? So thank you all so much. I think we're getting real close here. A couple minutes out.
My finger's on the button. Could you tell?
Yeah. So just a reminder, I threw some links in the chat room. Go check those out. Workshop in Washington next month. And the Gifts for the Ghost video series are in there as well. And you can find me at Shaman Sister pretty much everywhere on social media, and my website, RebeccaHaywood.com. And as always, I'm available for private sessions. Sheena's available for private sessions, and you can find her
at SheenaMetalSpiritual.com and at IamRaisingYourVibration.com. And I think I'm the only Sheena Metal in the world. So if you type one in and you see this smiling face, then you know it's me. I also taught a webinar last month called at WhyDoIFeelEverything.com. I think tomorrow they will have it converted for the replay, and you can still sign up and watch it in replay.
Great.
And also for empaths, I'm teaching a workshop, webinar on August 31st called Feed the Light, Starve the Dark, about how to grow the positivity in you and eliminate the negativity around you. So that's coming up, and sign up for that. And we love you. And of course, the most exciting thing is I'm the co-host of Shameless Feminine Speaks on Tuesday nights from 7 to 8 p.m. Pacific time right here on LA Talk Radio.
All right. Love you all so much.
You're listening to Shameless Feminine Speaks with your host, modern-day shaman and sister to all, Rebecca Haywood, right here on LA Talk Radio.